Hey, runners only, yeah, let's get it started. Hey, this is runners only with Dom Harvey. Fast paced, slow and steady, anywhere you coming. Just wanna connect for everyone who loves running. This is runners only, yeah, let's get it started. Hey, this is runners only with Dom Harvey. Fast paced, slow and steady, anywhere you coming. Just wanna connect for everyone who loves running. Hey, runners only with Dom Harvey.
Well, here we are. I'm sitting in the lounge with Brad Smeele, the man, the myth, the legend.
Good to be here.
Hey, great to be here and finally meet you. I've been friends with you on Instagram for a few years now. We follow each other. Yep. Your journey, I mean, I'm not the first and I won't be the last to tell you this. It's nothing short of inspirational.
Thank you. Yeah, that word does get thrown my way a lot. And for a while there, I almost didn't have an issue with it, but it's like when you hear the same thing over and over and over again, it's like, you kind of, it almost waters it down. But like at the end of the day, to have something like that, like a word thrown like that in my direction all the time, it's just, it's one of the better compliments you could probably get. Yeah,
a lot of people are probably wondering, like, why is this guy's a great guest, but what's he doing on a podcast about, called Runners Only? But the funny thing is, there's this thing called Red Bull Wings for Life. It's a run they have in May each year. Do you want to explain how that works? It's like it's midnight in New Zealand, but it's at the same time all over the world, right?
Yeah, so it's Wings for Life is the Spinal Cord Injury Foundation, which was started by an old, I think the father of an old motocross rider who was, I think, friends with the head of Red Bull, and so they came together and they started Wings for Life. And so the Wings for Life World Run, as you said, starts at the same moment in time all around the world, and so I've been getting involved in that, and it's been really cool. The first year, so 2 years ago, me and my buddy Jesse and a couple of other friends. Again, as you said, it's 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday night in New Zealand. Like, New Zealand's probably one of the worst places in the world to do it, bar Hawaii. I think Hawaii is at like 2 or 3 in the morning. But, yeah, so it's hard to get people into it. But so the first year that I did it, we went out just from here and went up, ran around Lake Pupuki and back. And my friend Jesse was pushing me in my manual wheelchair. But it was absolutely bucketing down with rain, and it was like, at first I was like, oh man, like, are we really going to have to go out and get soaked? But I'd just gotten this new raincoat, like, that's designed for wheelchair users, and chucked that on and went out, and it was just a blast. We had so much fun, and I just loved being out in the elements, because I'm somewhat, like, have to be protected from that at times, like with a wheelchair that could crap out if it got too wet. And the difficulty of changing clothes and things like that afterwards. But so then, the next year, again, Red Bull got a bit more involved here in New Zealand, because I think they tried to do one the year before I did it down at Hampton Downs. But try getting people to Hampton Downs.
At 11 o'clock on a Sunday night. No, thanks.
Exactly. So they joined forces with a run club, and, we started from, I think we had over 100 people, maybe 150 people. We started from under the Harbour Bridge down at
West Haven there.
West Haven, and we ran down and around. And I did about 16 Ks that night. There was 2 different people pushing me. One did, I think, 12, and the other one took me for the other 4. One of my friends did his first half marathon that night just because he was that pumped and motivated. And, they see right in front of them, like someone like me, and there was this girl, Peter, there, and a few others in wheelchairs. And we really love to get more people in wheelchairs along, whether they're being pushed or whether they're pushing themselves. But, I think by having us there, the people who are running it, they see right in front of them the cause and why they're doing it. And
it's powerful.
I think it's so powerful, so motivating for people to run further than they've ever run before, because there's that motivation right there in front of them. So it was amazing, and looking forward to this year again, and hoping we can get more and more people down there.
Yeah, I love it.
I'll see you there, right?
Oh, 100%. Mate, it would be an absolute honour to push you.
What was this we were talking about the other day as well?
Oh, when I messaged asking you about coming on the podcast, you're like, we should do a marathon together.
Well, you said, hey, I've got a crazy idea or something to ask you, and I knew you were into your running, so I was like, oh, he's going to want to push me for a marathon, but that wasn't it.
No.
But I totally roped you into it.
I'll gladly do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
Can we get a lighter chair? That chair looks really, really heavy.
Right there, that one over there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, cool.
That's the one.
Yeah. Hey,
We can put some speed wheels on it and we're good to go.
Yeah, mate, I'd be keen as. It would be an absolute honour.
That's awesome.
Now, here's what I think. I think for anybody to go from being able-bodied to being a tetraplegic would be particularly hard, like a massive adjustment. Yeah. But for someone that is, fully using their body to the maximum of its ability, like you did with your wakeboarding, that's got to make it like even tougher, like a next level.
Yeah, my physical ability was, to me, that was my identity. I was Brad Smeele, the wakeboarder, or like even things like modeling, even other, little side hustles that I did. Like it was all based around my physical ability. So it felt like I'd lost myself. It's actually been a crazy ride. Like this kind of life coach guru woman who's been helping me through this whole journey, she told me early on, she's like, you're not going to believe me, but later on you're going to look back and you're going to be grateful for this whole situation. I was like, there is no way, absolutely not. But now, I am more confident in who I am in myself now than I was before my accident. After my accident, I had a few years of trying to get everything back, trying to get the movement back, everything, and then I kind of hit a low. And
because you weren't making the progress that you expected?
Exactly, yeah. Basically, I wanted to get my arms working, and they still don't work. So I'd hit like an all-time low, and I kind of learned, breakdowns lead to breakthroughs, and I kind of realized that, okay, am I, even if I were able to get my arms moving, but it took 20 years, is 20 years of full-time, 7 days a week rehab worth it for that? Like, or am I better off focusing on having a better life, full, enjoying the life that I've got rather than trying to get the life that I used to have back? And so basically what that meant, it basically meant coming from a position of gratitude and looking at, okay, rather than trying to get back what I don't have, it's being grateful and appreciating what I do have, or rather than getting frustrated about all the things that I can't do anymore, it's like, okay, what can I do? And that's really where there was this turning point where I started going, out on little hike missions in my wheelchair, friends pushing me around trails in the Waitaks and stuff. And then I was like, okay, if of anything I could still do that would give me as much enjoyment as anyone else, what are some of those things? And the two things I came to was skydiving and scuba diving. I was like, the thrill, the enjoyment would be the exact same. And I went and spoke to a dive doctor, and he said, no, absolutely not. I cannot give you clearance to scuba dive. It was kind of a long shot probably, but for him, he was like, I can't give you clearance. But typical me, I just tuned into that one thing. Breathing compressed gas underwater is what is, adding the risk. So I'm like, okay, so
if I hold my breath,
it's eliminating that risk, right? And he's like, adding a few others, but it's technically getting rid of that medical risk. So then I started practicing holding my breath, and within 3 or 4 attempts, I beat my previous record of 3.5 minutes from before my accident. And then over time, I started building up that breath hold, and I got to, my record now is 5 minutes and 45 seconds.
That's insane. So when you were doing that, pardon all my ignorance here, but what do you feel? Like if I hold my breath, my lungs will start to burn. Do you feel the burn?
Yeah, I feel it as well. I think holding my breath brought me progression again, which was something that was missing in my life after wakeboarding. It allowed me to push myself. We've got this amazing dynamic with my friends. I've this trust between us because they're the ones bringing me back up. They're trusting me to know my limits and give the signal when I need to.
You were a big deal in wakeboarding, but I never heard of you as a wakeboarder. The first I heard of you was I started seeing things on social media about a Give a Little page, which ended up being like $250,000. And then there was a photo that went viral of you and your girlfriend at the time, and she was curled up on your bed with you. Yeah. And then I read an article about you shortly after the accident where you talked about some ancient Hawaiian principles. So it feels like you've always had this this sort of sense of calm.
There was definitely a little bit of that beforehand.
Yeah.
Those Huna wisdoms were given to me by my auntie, and we printed them out and stuck them to the ceiling above my hospital bed, because I was on bed rest a lot of the time. Then I ended up with a pressure sore. Got back to New Zealand after 3.5 months in the States, through ICUs and spinal units. Ended up having to be on bed rest for 2 months once I got home, and so I had that stuck above my bed. And there's some that are reasonably simple. The world is what you think it is.
Yeah.
So it's about your mindset. If you focus on every negative thing in the world, then you're going to think the world's a pretty negative place. Whereas if you focus on all the positive things, and then that kind of ties in with energy flows where attention goes, which is another one. And there's 7 of them.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot that I've learned, and I just feel like I'm so much stronger mentally, and also I think going back to Susie telling me I'd be grateful for this, like I would have never been able to positively affect this many people's lives as a pro wakeboarder.
Absolutely. Can we go back to July 2014?
We can.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So you're this kick-ass wakeboarder. You've done is it a 1080, which is 360s, which is nuts.
Yes, I did that when I was in 2008.
Right.
And then right before the injury, I'd landed the world's first
double tantrum to blind.
There you go.
What the fuck does that even mean?
So a tantrum is basically just a straight back flip.
Right.
It's just the way, there's a back roll, which is kind of like a side-to-side rolling flip, whereas a tantrum's kind of a straight back flip. So I did a double indie tantrum, so indie grab, so backhand between the legs on the front toe side edge of the board. And then to blind is where you do a backside 180, and the blind meaning you can't actually see where you're going when you land. You're looking backwards. So you got your hand behind your back, holding the rope, and you're riding backwards. Right. And this was on a mega ramp too, which was a new part of wakeboarding. Usually you crash into the lake or into the ocean or the lake.
So this was you go up a ramp, then you're flying for a bit, and then you're down on another ramp.
Yeah, so similar to freestyle motocross and those sort of setups. And so, I'd just come off a big event in Germany where I landed the world's first double tension blind. We all knew it was going to win Trick of the Year. Like, even one of my guys I'd idolized my entire life, like the legend of wakeboarding, Parks Bonifay, was like, dude, that's the craziest trick I've ever seen. Like, to have that guy telling me that was just like, it was everything. I'd just come off filming for Travis Pastrana's action figures film. I did a double flip over top of him and almost hit him. And then, a week later, it all went to shit.
Wow.
Again, everything slowed down. I had enough time to think. I was like, okay, I want to do a break fall because I'm about to go face first into the ramp. The little joke I say is, I don't want to ruin my modeling career, my pretty face. And then, and so I was like, I would tuck and roll, tuck my head and shoulders under, roll out of it. But just the speed in which I was coming in, I didn't have enough time, and I got my head under, but not my shoulders, and basically forced my head down into my chest and exploded my C4 vertebrae and knocked me unconscious instantly, and I was left floating face down in the water. And
were you knocked out cold then, or
I was out. So they kind of pulled me or flipped me over. I was blue in the face, eyes wide open, not responsive at all. One of my friends thought I was dead, and they managed to pull me up onto the paddleboard. Like, get my sort of upper body up on it, and they were kind of ready to try and do CPR right then and there. And again, little joke I says, I must have known deep down that one of my buddies was about to put his mouth to mine, because I woke up and started breathing on my own.
They're great jokes, by the way. Did they take a while, or before you could see the funny side, or fairly early?
That kind of came about in my public speaking, because I was talking about it so much, and it's a very heavy moment, so I like to kind of bring it back up a little bit. In my talks, I always know it's a successful talk if I've gotten gasps, cheers, laughs and tears.
Yeah, make them laugh, make them cry.
Yeah, and and they had me in a neck brace on a backboard and everything. Call the helicopter in. My first response was, don't you call that fucking helicopter. It's going to be so expensive. Because I had no insurance, no money. Like I'd just come off my travel insurance and was just looking into what insurance I could get over there because I just got a 5-year visa to be there.
It's expensive over there. If you get sick in the States and you're not insured, it's a grim situation.
Last thing I remember was in the MRI, and I don't know if you've had an MRI before, but they put the headphones on you and everything, and they're like, okay, we're about to get started. It's going to take a little while. You're going to need to stay still. I was like,
that's all I can fucking do.
Come on. And then, there's about a week blank after that. I was apparently conscious. I had a 9-hour surgery to piece my neck back together. They used a cadaver vertebrae, so a dead person's vertebrae that they donated and put into my neck, and 2 rods, a plate, and 14 screws to hold it all together. And I was put on a ventilator. My family flew in. I don't remember any of this. And then the first thing I remember was actually a hallucination I had. And and then the next morning it was when I remember like waking up. I didn't know I was in hospital. Funny thing is, my hospital room was directly across from the nurses. What do you call it?
Oh, like station or wing or office.
Yeah, and so they got the coffee machine and stuff like that there. And so I'm looking out through I wake up and I look across and I'm like, first thing, smell of fresh coffee. And the light coming in through the room, like just these things grab me, and the next thing I see these like couple of girls in scrubs, and and I'm like, I don't remember anything. Did I get wasted last night and end up home with some chick who's her and her mates are all nurses and they're just getting ready for work, and then she walks in and I'm like ready to sit up and say hello, can't move, can't speak, it all just drops, like hit me like a ton of bricks. And I mean, even then, like right now, like I feel it, like it takes me back to that moment and just how heavy it was. And then my mum was there. She'd already flown in, but she wasn't there right at that moment. She came in an hour or so later, and next thing I'm like, Mum, I got kidnapped. Like I'm mouthing it because I couldn't speak because of the ventilator. And she's like talking to the nurse. Oh, he thinks he got kidnapped. And I'm like, no, it fucking happened. Like I'm getting so mad at her because I fully thought it happened. And then everything from then on was just gnarly. Like, the heaviest, 5 weeks of my life there in the ICU. Almost died in front of my mum. Like that was another heavy moment. And then I got shipped off to Atlanta to the spinal unit where I spent another 3 months and then was able to get home. So
was this is real grim, but in those early days when the reality of it sort of set in, were there moments where you wish you died in the water, or you
100%? Yeah. There were moments where I was laying there in the hospital bed, and if I had a gun I could have put to my head and pulled the trigger, I would have, or I might have.
And this is the fact thing about it. Even if you decided to take your own life, you couldn't. Exactly.
And the crazy thing as well is, if I had the ability to pull that trigger, I wouldn't need to. I wouldn't want to. So here I am locked in this situation that I couldn't get out of. And it was partially that, partially no other way out, like refusal to give up, but no other way out. And also the community rallying behind me, my friends and family being there, fundraisers started happening, all the messages coming in, all of that sort of stuff just kind of like made me decide, all right, screw it, I'm gonna fight this. Like I needed that. I needed that fight. I needed that goal. I needed something to work towards in the rehab and stuff. And for a while, that's definitely what I needed. It was what was keeping me going. And then it got to the point where that was just 3 years down the track, and the movement wasn't coming back. And
I've followed you on Instagram. You work bloody hard. Your work ethic is second to none. I mean, if anyone could get their mobility back by willpower and just through trying it, it would be you.
So I mean, there's stuff being worked on, but who knows how long it'll take. So.
And I suppose you need hope, don't you? But you can't hold your breath, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, funny terminology to
Yeah.
use.
Well, yeah, you can. Yeah, 5 minutes 45.
But yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, I'm definitely confident that there will be a cure of some sort. People think cure, and you kind of think of it in the same way where people think vaccine. They think, oh, it means I can't get COVID or whatever the vaccine's for. That's not how a vaccine works. Same with the cure for a spinal cord injury. It's, it's not like they do whatever they're going to do and then all of a sudden I'm out of the chair and running around again, wakeboarding again. It's not going to happen. It's, even like a 20% recovery is classed as a cure. Even, obviously a cure might come out, but it might be an acute cure that needs to be done straight after the injury. That doesn't help me. It may help if there's a procedure that needs doing that, then we'll use that to protect any further damage from happening. But yeah, it's interesting. So I'm hopeful. I'm positive that there will be something, but I'm not living my life hanging on a thread. That's what's going to bring me my happiness and my joy in life back.
Are you mostly happy? You have more happy days than sad days?
Yeah. From day one after the accident, every day was miserable. And after the first year, it was like maybe 1 or 2 days a week were miserable. And then it got to the point where there'll be occasionally like things will affect me, even things like jealousy.
Yeah.
I've got such a good understanding of it now that the instinctual reaction hits, and it's almost like I've got this notification in my head that goes, ping, you know what this is all about. This is an ugly emotion. What other people have has nothing to do with what you have. All these sorts of things, all these reminders just come straight through, and I'm like, okay, I'm not jealous anymore. I'm not affected by that anymore. And that only came through years of work, that every time that would come up, rather than pushing it aside, I would sit with it. And there's this analogy that I use, and I've kind of stolen a well-known analogy, and I've added to it. The one where you talk about all your stresses and troubles and worries in life, if you imagine them as a glass of water, that you hold it for a minute, it's fine. Hold on to it for an hour or so, you get a sore arm. Hold on to it all day, you probably won't be able to lift your arm, and it'll feel almost paralyzed. And it's the same way that if we hold on to these things for too long, they affect us on that really on that sort of a level. Like, our stresses and worries can almost become paralyzing and stopping us from doing things in our life. And I got to the point where, so we take that analogy and it's like, okay, well, that one usually finishes with like, oh well, if you put those, it's basically the longer that you hold it, the more it affects you.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, you either put it down somewhere or you let it go. If you let it go, it smashes on the ground and leaves a mess to clean up later. If you put it down, you still haven't addressed them. You've just put them to the side. The analogy I use now is, okay, you've got a glass of water. How can you benefit from a glass of water? You fucking drink it, right? You absorb it. Your body benefits from it. So if you take those same stresses and worries and everything that hits you, emotions, and if you sit with them and you drink them in, you let your body process them, then over time you learn to work through those better, you understand them better, and you can benefit from that glass of water, the weight of that glass of water, which is seen as a bad thing, now it's a positive.
Yeah.
So if we take everything else in that same way in our mental health, and again, it does take some struggles. I had someone I was working with on it, like a counselor type person or a therapist, which was Susie. And yeah, so that's the thing. A, don't be afraid to get help. B, don't push things aside. We've got to learn to work through them, because that's how we end up better off because of it.
Can we talk about the day-to-day life of being Brad?
Yeah, well, I mean, even then, we just had to pause for a second because I've had some pain issues that I've been dealing with for months now, just lower abdomen pain. And people will be like, hey, aren't you paralyzed and you can't feel anything below the level of injury? And it's like, well, again, this is another thing that's different for everyone. Some people feel nothing below the level of injury. I feel nothing on the outside, like skin sensation, touch. There's a little bit there, like temperature. I can feel slightly. But on the inside, I feel everything. And I've got constant nerve pain, so chronic pain. It's basically like a version of pins and needles, which feels like a freezing cold burning sensation constantly, 24/7.
So you got all the bad and none of the good.
Exactly. But at the same time, it's the way you look at it. Like, would I rather my spinal cord injury is that bad that I feel nothing at all, or maybe feeling a little bit of pain is maybe a good thing? It's maybe there are signals getting through. So
yeah, then you can do something about it.
yeah, but anyway, so I've been dealing with these gut pains, and they're sort of undiagnosed. We've looked into everything we could, and so we've still got some more research to do there. But yeah, just dealing with pain. One thing I've learned through having to deal with pain, and especially when it gets really intense, there'll be times where I'll get like a severe bladder infection, and it gives me what's called the rigors, which is like the uncontrollable shivers. And because my muscles above my level of injury, which is sort of like if you draw a line across my chest just above nipple line, that's sort of where my feeling stops, and movement as well. So all of a sudden, the only things that are moving are my shoulders and upper traps and my jaw, and I'm just shivering, and it doesn't stop until I get to hospital and get the right pain relief. And when that starts, it's one thing I've realized, and it's sort of another analogy that I like to use, is I find myself getting really short-tempered. I have no tolerance. I'm like, just fucking get me there now. Like, if they're fluffing around, I'm just like, I lose it. And I'm getting better at dealing with that. But in those painful situations, like patience, tolerance, all that goes out the window.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the same with most people, though, right?
That's for
instinct.
everyone. Yeah. But then the analogy I like to use, or the comparison, is like, mental pain can be just as bad as physical pain. And someone who may be, going through some shit that we don't realize it's on the inside, but like, they may be snappy, they may be intolerant, they may be this or that. And if you don't know what's going on, you just may think they're a dick. But if you actually knew what's going on in their life, like that inner pain, that mental pain can really affect people just as heavily in terms of the way they act and the way they respond and stuff. And they might bite back on something, but it's, even after like lockdown, everyone's just dealing with shit. Everyone's stressed. Everyone's over it. And like, even interactions on Facebook, or people are like biting back at each other, and it's like, it all just gets out of hand because people are struggling. That's what it comes down to. And to really understand that means we can be more tolerant with those sorts of people and what they're going through. So again, that goes back to that, putting yourself in someone's shoes thing. So yeah, it's just, again, I try to learn from all these experiences that I go through, as negative as they may be. There can be a positive that comes out of it. And I think that's something that the more people learn that, and the more that they understand that, you'd probably have read this one before, but the old Chinese proverb, maybe. Have you heard that
What's that one?
So there's this farmer, and he goes out and he's tending the fields, and his horse runs away. So that evening, his neighbours and the community and stuff that come around, and they're like, oh, that's so terrible. The farmer's like, maybe. The next day, he's out in the field, and the horse runs back, and he's got 7 wild horses with it. And like that evening, everyone comes around, oh my God, this is so amazing. What great fortune.
Maybe.
The farmer's like, maybe. And then the next day, the farmer and his son are out in the field, and they're trying to break the horses in, and his son gets bucked off the horse, breaks his leg. Oh, that's so terrible. What misfortune. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Next day or a week later or whatever, war breaks out, and they come around drafting people for the war, and the son obviously can't go to war because he's broken his leg, and everyone's like, oh, such great fortune. Again, maybe. And you could keep going with it. Maybe the son would have gone to war and been a war hero. Maybe he would have gone and died. Like, the point is, things happen, and we put a certain amount of belief or a certain amount of, we put like a meaning to it that hasn't happened yet. So something may happen, and we just think it's immediately bad, but in the long run, it may turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's another thing to not project too far into the future, to remain present, to know that anything we're projecting into the future, any beliefs that we think, oh, this will mean that, it's bullshit until it happens. So I think that's a really good thing for people to take on, is to understand that, we never know what things might lead to.
I mean, your your burden's been bigger than what most of us will ever have to go through. But everyone goes through shit though at some point to some sort of degree. Are there any like books that you swear by? Highly recommend.
The one that really got me after the accident, I didn't read many books before my accident. I wasn't really into that. But the one that really stuck with me was Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Dan Millman.
Dan Millman, yeah. And there's some amazing quotes in that. One that I really love is around, the idea around like a person who is rich, in terms of wealth. And it's a quote that I use a lot. And so leading into it, the guy asks is Socrates, I think he calls him, and he's, something about, what is a wealthy man? And he basically says, a rich man is someone who can afford to buy all of his desires, pay for all of his desires. And there are two ways to go about that. You can earn, steal, beg, borrow, inherit enough money to pay for all of your desires, or you can cultivate a lifestyle of few desires, a simple life, which means you don't need the money in order to pay for it. Both ways, you're a rich man.
Right.
Because you can afford everything that you desire.
So it's adjusting your mindset so you actually want less.
Exactly. It's like, well, what do you have control of in that situation? Like, sure, you can go out and earn money and stuff, but you got more control of what your desires are and what your beliefs are around what makes someone successful and what doesn't. And so the quote that I love to use is what comes after that, and it's basically, I'm trying to think now, I'm just drawing a mind blank. The secret to happiness you see is not found in seeking more, but in developing the capacity to enjoy less. And at first I was like, how does enjoying less mean, having more kind of thing? And it's not about, enjoying less. It's about our capacity. You could still have just as much as you have in terms of material possessions. But if you've basically adjusted your capacity to enjoy, then, you can enjoy a moment with some friends playing cards as opposed to, like, thinking that you need to be out partying and clubbing, drinking and paying for this and buying that. It's just adjusting our belief on what enjoyment is.
Absolutely.
And what wealth is and things like that. So that's a book I recommend. Another one, Tuesdays with Murray, was quite good. Basically, it's a professor of a guy,
the old dude,
dying and he's got all these life lessons. I thought that was really good. I read Andre Agassi's Open. That was a really good one for helping me learn to write my book. And then I've also read Scar Tissue. Those are the main books I've read since my accident.
Yeah, Scar Tissue. That's a random one.
Scar Tissue was great because I needed to learn how to write about sex, drugs, and partying in a tasteful way.
Right. Is there a bit of that?
Of course, man.
Right.
My book is raw. It's everything.
That's amazing. Is this pre-accident or post-accident? Both. Amazing.
Yeah.
You still get on it now with your mates?
Yeah, everything. And just everything around... around just trying to write, because I want my story to be as authentic as possible. I don't want people to think I was this angel that didn't do this or that, didn't have any negative things. There are things in my life that I did that a lot of people would view as negatives or bad things that I would have done, but it was just what I needed to do in the situation. Just there's a lot in there. I'll let you guys read it. I won't go into it.
It's going to be one hell of a book. And I'll tell you what, no one could begrudge you that. taking some drugs or alcohol to get to
Exactly.
to make you feel temporarily happy.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, since my accident, I haven't done much in the way of drugs. Not to the extent I did before my accident. Even before my accident, like I wasn't out there bloody shooting up heroin or anything. I was pretty balanced with it, I think. And but on that, just thinking of the book in general, I know this will come out way before the book does. If anyone has any title ideas, that'd be great. Send them my way. I'm still struggling to come up with a title. I've got a few ideas.
What are you working on at the moment?
Just playing around the ideas of, crossing over with wakeboarding, but just life in general, like something like, like a hell of a ride or what a ride, and, along for the ride. But then there's other ones like, even the word wake, obviously wakeboarding, but then also like the wake as in what was left behind after the accident, the wake that came from that. And yeah, there's a few other ideas we're playing with. There's some amazing titles of books that I really love, like a book I'm reading at the moment, Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, that is, that'd be my top pick. Viktor Frankl, incredible book.
So I've just started that, and there was another one I saw. It was about a dude who did the Isle of Man racing. Was it called Dead Men Don't Tell No Tales or something like that? So yeah, there's some cool titles I'm drawing inspiration from, but I haven't hit that one that just hit the nail on the head yet.
You'll know it when it comes.
Yeah,
that's going to be one hell of a book, mate. That's going to be really good.
It's been years and years of work, and honestly, the way I like to sort of liken it to is, before my accident, for the 2 years before the accident, I was managing Lake Ronix, which was my board sponsor. Mm-hmm. It was our team's private wake training facility. And I was doing a lot of the building, a lot of the hands-on stuff. My dad was a builder, so I learned a lot of that as I was growing up. And we were out building all these ramps and rails, and we built the mega ramp that I broke my neck on, and all these things. And always after building this, on a building project, and you stand back afterwards, you got something really, something tangible in front of you to be proud of. Yeah. But I think this book is going to be the biggest thing I've built, the thing that I can be the most proud of, and gives me that same feeling of, physically hands-on building that I had before the accident. So, yeah, it's really cool. I'm proud of it already. It hasn't come out yet. I know. I'd imagine I have a really good response. I'm a little bit like, have I gone too raw in terms of revealing too much about myself? But at the end of the day, it's what's real, and I think that will allow people to connect on a deeper level and go, hey, this guy is truly human and someone who I can actually relate to on certain levels. So, and
you've written every single word yourself. You haven't been like dictating to an editor or anything. You've done it with this like stylus pen that's built into your chair.
Yeah, so it's basically a stylus, a long stylus that I hold in my mouth, and I have my phone mounted in front of me and type away. I use an iPad for a while there, but the keyboard's bigger on an iPad, so it's a bigger movement for me with my head and neck. So I've mainly done it on my phone. And ended up so I'm writing it in first person present tense, so people are in my shoes while they're reading it. But not being an author myself, like I don't know how to craft a book from start to finish properly. Of
course you do. It's your story.
Well, no. In terms of like, I know how to write, and it turns out I'm actually pretty decent at writing in terms of being descriptive and using different metaphors and similes and. But in terms of actually crafting the book from start to finish, making sure all the overarching themes are intertwined in at the right places and what actually is really relevant and needs to be in there and what doesn't. And so when I finished writing, I basically got to close to 500,000 words, which is the longest manuscript my publisher had ever received.
It's bigger than the history of New Zealand.
It's insane. But, there was just so much that I wanted to get down, and I wanted to give my editor the full story so she could whittle it down and condense it a bit into what was really relevant. And there's been a bit of pushback and forth. Some stories I think that I was really excited about and really wanted in there, but she's like, they don't really add to what the whole point of the story is, and we're trying to get rid of words. And So we're trying to get to under 200,000 words, and yeah, it's been an interesting process. We're about halfway through the main edit at the moment, and there's a lot to do after that. I mean, you know yourself, the whole process of writing a book and editing and everything. And
yeah, I think I'm lazier than you because and my books were done with the same publishers, Allen and Unwin, but when I got the contract, it was like 70 to 90,000 words. So I'd type a paragraph, then check the word count, and as soon as it got to 70,000, I was like popping champagne. You were on 500,000, and you're doing it with that stylus in your mouth.
They sent me the same contract, like 80 to 100,000 words or something like that. And I was like, once I blew past 100,000 words, I'm like, okay, so that was what you wanted, but what can we push out to, you know? And
it's worth mentioning, like with your advance, which is a pittance anyway, you're not getting any extra money for the extra words you write.
No, exactly. So it was more about just, you know, getting the full story out. I suppose I could have done it in a shorter way, but just the way of it being in first-person present tense makes it really hard to like summarize like a whole month. You can summarize in like even, you know, a few paragraphs, whereas if you're in the moment and you're like walking through those days and weeks and stuff, it does take a lot longer to write it out. And that's, you know, you mentioned like that I didn't dictate it, and people ask why I didn't do that, and it is quite hard to like having my brain working in first person present tense and the speed at which my brain works versus how my mouth works in dictating, you know, vocally, they weren't matching up. And also when I dictate, you know, it makes mistakes, and it takes almost just as much time to go back and fix them all as if I'd written it myself. And the one thing, though, which was just an absolute godsend, when iPhones went to added the old swipe to text rather than just tapping.
Oh, right. So you can just like swipe across. Yeah.
So
like
for
Samsung's.
me, like tapping and using my mouth, I was basically like a woodpecker pecking at this phone trying to tap the buttons. Whereas then, like it at least doubled my word count. Like I think I'm at like 65 words a minute.
That's insane.
Well,
by the way,
that's not the speed at which I wrote my book, because I was obviously having to think a lot.
Sure.
That was me writing the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog over and over and over again.
Just seeing how fast you could go.
Exactly. And so, by swipe to text, it just meant like I'm just moving my head side to side rather than pecking at the phone. So
it's amazing technology. How long did it take you to get used to the stylus and the mouth thing?
When they first gave it to me, I was like, get this fucking thing away from me.
Must have been so frustrating.
Never, ever going to use that. Nah. And then so throughout the time in the spinal unit in the States was when I started to work on it, and I get a sore jaw after a while, like holding on to that thing throughout the day, especially when I was writing the whole book. But it didn't take that long once I actually decided, okay, I'm going to do this because I don't really have another option.
Yeah.
And I wanted that independence, and to be honest, me and Siri didn't get along very well. Like vocally trying to text with Siri. Oh my God. Like it got to the point where we didn't get along. So I needed that independence of having my phone in front of me. And that is most of my independence through technology and through
Absolutely.
that. I've got caregivers looking after me and doing everything for me. And that in itself is a big test in tolerance and different programming, the way I'm wired versus the way they're wired, and what they think, how something should be done and how I think it should be done, often very different.
I can imagine. I mean, you strike me as being like you're fiercely independent, and also, you don't get to do the stuff that you did on a wakeboard without being a perfectionist and an A-type. So you obviously like having things done a certain way. That's got to be one of the hard things, I'd imagine.
Totally. Yeah. But it's been amazing finding things that I can do, and I've accepted the fact that I need help with most things. But even looping back around into the freediving side of things that I've been doing. Sorry, excuse me. And like obviously I mentioned earlier, it's this really cool thing me and my friends have, and it became something that like, okay, this is what I can do, this is what I can really focus on. And there's this amazing full circle thing which happens, and I include this in the book as well, but after the accident, as you mentioned earlier, and you even said it yourself, like I was in the situation where even if I wanted to kill myself, I couldn't.
Yeah.
So in my head, even though like by this point I was well beyond any thoughts of actually wanting to do it.
Yeah.
Because even in the moment, I think right up after I woke up and realized what had happened, I don't think I would have actually wanted to do it. I don't think that's part of me. I don't think I have that in me. But there was always this thought in the back of my head, because I couldn't. It's like, okay, if I could, or if I wanted to, how? And my thought was, okay, I would drive my wheelchair off the end of a wharf or into a deep swimming pool, and that'd be my way to go. Crazy thing now is like through the freediving, the bottom of that swimming pool is where I found passion for life again.
Right.
So the most out there full circle moment, but I was sitting there at the bottom of the Olympic pools in Newmarket, 4.5 meters down for like, I think the first couple of times I did it, I think I got got up around 5 minutes. And I'd never experienced, well, not since being able to wakeboard. Like that was my escape. That was my meditation. That was my like, what do you call it when you're in the zone? Oh, there's a word, flow state.
Yeah, flow state. You're just being fully in the moment.
That was it for me. That was everything. And since the accident, I hadn't had that at all. Hadn't been able to find that. But at the bottom of that pool was where everything just disappeared. All the thoughts of past and present and future and fears and beliefs and all that shit. I was sitting there in the moment, and it was unbelievable to have that and to be able to share that with my friends. And I know my mum, and I think that time my mum and dad were sitting poolside, obviously stressing out. I mean, you know my mum, right? Like,
when he gets to the five, your son's been underwater for 5 minutes. Yeah, that can't be easy.
Yeah, and so, but to come up after that time in the bottom of the pool, me and my friends all hooting and hollering, like just smile beaming across my face, like. And that's when my mum realised, like, as well, because obviously she would have her fears around that, but for her, she's like, fuck, okay, my son's found something that actually truly makes him happy again. And that was really big, because mum's a little hesitant, as mums are, they're protective and stuff, but she knows that obviously the way I'm programmed, the way I like to live life, like, I need shit like this. So, and at the end of the day, like, I know there are risks, but like, I had a friend who, I could drown freediving. I could be out somewhere and get eaten by a shark at the end of the day, but it's where you learn about control. Like, if I'm down there and a shark decides to eat me, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So why would I freak out? Why would I do anything? Because that's completely out of my control. But even if I could drown, anything like that, but just as easily, I could die from an infection. A guy who was a tandem skydive instructor in the States, he had his injury about the same time as me, and we ended up in the same spinal unit, similar age, same level injury. And we got along really well, and he's a dude from the States. And we lost touch a little bit over the years, and then I heard news that he had died from an infection. And that was right around the time when I was starting to get into this, and I was like, that right there, like, solidifies exactly why I'm doing this. Because, that's the reality. Like, and I've what's the word? I've accepted my own mortality. I know that my injury means I have a shorter life expectancy than most.
It does it? Like, how much? What's it reduced by?
They didn't really put any numbers on it, but just.
Is that because you're unable to like exercise or get movement? Or
and respiratory stuff mainly.
Okay, right.
I can't cough. Well, I can. Like, it's pretty pitiful. I don't have
even if you had COVID, I wouldn't get it from here. I'm like a metre and a half away from you.
But like, so I don't have the ab strength to squeeze the diaphragm and push the air out. And so if I get a chest infection, like, that's quite dangerous. Obviously, COVID, especially the earlier versions, Omicron, I guess, apparently not so effective on the lungs. But so that's all the stuff I've come to terms with and faced and everything. So I actually, this is kind of what it comes down to for me, is I don't fear death. Mm-hmm. I fear not living. And, those are two very different things.
It's like a line, there's a Pink Floyd song called Wish You Were Here, and it talks about exchanging a walk-on part in the war for a lead role in a cage.
Exactly.
Like that's the same thing.
I love that song. I used to play that on the guitar. That's like, besides wakeboarding, in fact, I would put that above wakeboarding. If I could have the guitar back, like that would be just, so much. But, it's just one of those things. Like, we learn from experiences and everything we go through, and there are a lot of very confronting things that I had to work through, and that being one of them, my own mortality. And so it's like, why would I not go out and just have this epic time with my friends just because there's a risk of dying when there's a risk of dying every day? Or, it's just part of my life. So.
Seems like you got a good crew as well. There's I don't know, when shit hits the fan in someone's life, I feel like there's two sorts of people that sort of like lean in, or people that sort of lean out. Most of your friends, they seem to have like leaned in.
Totally. Yeah, and it whittled out the ones that truly weren't good friends. And, but honestly, there weren't that many of them. Mainly those were just girls that were interested in me before, but not afterwards. It's like, cool, all right. But they were my friends, but they were only friends because they wanted me maybe, or I don't know, like...
Actually, can we talk about that for a second? And if you don't want to answer anything, that's cool. But so when it comes to girls now and sexual stuff, like, do you have like erogenous zones anywhere, or like parts of the body that? Yeah, I mean, how does that work?
So obviously, I don't have normal feeling, or don't have much feeling at all below the level of injury. So any physical contact around my neck, shoulders. Ears a little bit, but mainly like, a good head scratch or something. Like
good.
Something like that, or even like literally like a Q-tip in the ear, like just getting an
just
itch,
the right amount.
Getting an itch out of my, oh man, like that is just so satisfying. But in terms of sex and stuff, like that's a big question that I think a lot of people want to know, but not everyone's, going to ask. But, I'm fully open about it all. With my level of injury, I can still have sex. I can't, not like mental or visual stimulus doesn't do anything. It's only through physical touch that I can actually get it up and actually have sex. For a while there, I had to take the old blue pill to kind of just keep it going, but no, it didn't. That pretty much phased that out. I didn't need that anymore, and. The one thing, though, is that it's basically I can start, but I can't finish.
Right.
Yet. And it's one of those things. It's like, oh, well, same as rehab. I just need to practice, I guess. Problem is I can't practice alone, so, and it's been a bit of a dry spell lately. But no, to be honest, it's cool. And there is the slightest amount of feeling still down there. So, like, if I am having sex... as I said before, I've got nerve pains below my level of injury. Basically, everything I feel below the level of injury is a negative sort of pain or negative feeling. Whereas it's maybe like 2% of what it used to feel like before, but it's something, a tiny little tingle, but it's the only positive, pleasurable feeling that I get below the level of injury. So, it's just something that I'm learning as well. And with each different partner, each different girlfriend, that, it's all different. Like, and it's so much needs to be done around communication because I've been living with this injury for 7.5 years. Someone new comes into it. It's all new to them. Mm-hmm. And even though I'm used to it all, like I've got to realize that it's all so new and it's so different that, the best thing is just being open and communicating about it all. And, so I've I mean, as I said, like I had a good life before the injury and that sort of things.
Still having a good one afterwards.
It's one of those things, though. It's sort of like for a while there, it's like the life I lived before my injury. Like I'm so glad that I've been able to live. Like I traveled for 10 years of back-to-back summers. Like I think I had 21 summers back-to-back and partying. Obviously I was single a lot. I had a great time, and even wakeboarding and everything. But after my accident, that became, it was a blessing to have had. But it was also
you didn't squander those years, so you got the memories.
Exactly. But then it was like looking back on that, it's like now that's what I'm comparing life to. What I was talking about before, like if someone was a accountant behind a desk and had the same injury, it wouldn't be as hard. So it was, in a way, it was almost like a blessing and a curse that I had that for a while there, and now I've gotten past that. And so, I mean, although it's, certainly not what it used to be, I'm not interested in what it used to be, how things were. I don't want to have a one-night stand because it's awkward. Like, it takes 20 minutes for my caregiver to put me into bed. It's not really the most, like, erotic kind of turn-on, like, tearing each other's clothes off type of moment. So it's very different. And, and there are some girls who may be not that confident, or they may not, and because I'm paralyzed, I can't move. So you can picture it, like I'm laying on the bed and she's got to be on top, basically. If a girl's not confident and not able to do that, like then it's, it's like
it's a lot to take on.
Well, a usual sexual experience or anything like that is two people both, touching, feeling, whatever, or like so. Making it just a one-person side, like I have to, before, if I wanted to pull someone in and kiss them, now I have to do that with my words. And that was so awkward for a while there, but now, I know that that's how it is, and it's only through my words that I'm able to instill confidence in them to be able to do what they need to do or want to do. So I've just been having to kind of work on that and be more verbal and communicate better and But no, as I said earlier as well, like I've gotten to a point of confidence now where I'm just, I'll happily go up and chat with anyone, ask someone out for coffee, more than knowing that I could get turned down. But it's like if I don't shoot my shot, then I'm not gonna get where I want to be. Absolutely.
And confidence takes you a long way.
Yeah.
Whether you're able-bodied or not.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of learning, as I mentioned. There's a lot of things that I can't do. We're not just talking in the bedroom now, but like just in general, everyday life. And little things.
What springs to mind that we wouldn't necessarily think of?
Go out for a run.
Yeah.
Go on a mission to the beach. Like, sure, I can, but it takes a lot more work.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got
a
chair with tank tracks on it so I can go on a beach, but there's a lot that goes on, and plus the heat sucks. My body doesn't sweat from getting hot. Like you may have noticed I'm sweating now. That's from the gut pains that I'm getting. That's my body telling me, hey, something's wrong.
Yeah.
That's its response. It forces my blood pressure up, which makes me sweat. But yeah, if I'm out in the sun, I don't sweat, and so I just get hotter and hotter and hotter. I just cook. So I actually have to use like a spray bottle to kind of spritz, like mist water onto my body, and that kind of acts in the same way as sweat does. But yeah, there's things like that. I mean, even little things though, like say I got a girlfriend and she arrives at my house, I can't get up and go give her a hug. It's on her to come over and hug me, or sure I can drive my chair over, but she's got to be the one to initiate unless I'm verbally, I verbally initiate it, but. Just little things like that, like not being able to like hold someone's hand, like and these are things in a relationship that you don't think of.
Yeah.
And at the time they probably don't even feel like something that would be that would affect someone, but I think over time, it might just feel like something's missing, and that it could just be something like that, just that slight lack of physical contact, and that's where you come down to like love languages. Okay, if I met someone whose love language is physical touch, we may have an issue.
Yeah, gotcha.
So yeah, there's a lot to learn, and that's the thing. I've just been open to learning about it, and I know it's been a dry spell, but I know that the right person will come along when they need to. And
I feel like you're probably into a deeper connection now, anyway.
100%, and that's what I was getting to earlier. It was I'm not interested in those sort of someone who I just am into because they're hot.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't interest me now. Like, I'm so much more interested in that deeper connection and just other qualities that just seem more important. And I think that just comes with maturity and age for everyone, or most people anyway. And for me, it just, because I was hit with this situation all at once, it just forced me to learn these things that people, I think, try to learn over their lives, especially even the mental stuff that I've been talking about. A lot of people try to learn these, but because I don't have a 9-to-5 job, because I was able to sit, had the time to put into it, it meant that, I've been able to kind of grow a lot faster than I think most people do.
Yeah, God, it's some massive stuff you've been through. You can, just the way you speak and the lessons you've got, you can definitely tell you've done the work and some.
Yeah, thank you. On that note, anyone's interested, essential talent. I do public speaking. You do
a great job too.
Shameless self-promotion.
Yeah.
But no, I actually, that's one of the things I've gotten into lately that I really, really enjoy. Again, it's about taking what I've learned, being able to give it back, help others. And it gives me a similar feeling to like entering a wakeboard contest. Beforehand, I got
like adrenaline rush.
Got the nerves. Oh, have I prepared properly? Oh, this and that. You get into it, flow state. Like, oh, cool. The words are just coming. Like the hour flies by, and then afterwards, you got this feeling of accomplishment and everything, and paycheck as well. Hopefully, which didn't always come with the wakeboarding one, but if I did well, obviously it did. But yeah, it's been really cool, and I've been learning a lot over it, and I'm really grateful for my agent Sean and bringing me in and getting amongst it, and and for every company, school, anyone who's brought me along and hired me to come and speak. It's an honour, and looking forward to doing more. Yeah.
Hey, good luck with everything. Good luck with the book.
Thank you.
That's going to be amazing when that comes out, and good luck with the skydive. I reckon if anyone can get up in a plane and get themselves tossed out, that'll be
a fun one. I've got a friend of mine's a tandem skydive instructor over in Aussie, so I actually tried to go into 2019. I went over there to do it, but the weather didn't play ball, and I also didn't get clearance from the spinal unit. That was a tough one, but managed to get that all through, and that'll be something we've got on the cards.
Yeah, so the doctor that said you can't dive, he didn't say anything about the skydive.
No, this is another doctor, and they were kind of hesitant, but
right.
I basically said, look, the only reasons you're saying no kind of don't really have anything to do with my spinal cord injury, because we've covered everything. We'd addressed every issue. We'd covered everything that my lack of ability would, what would come into play with skydiving, and so we covered everything off. So literally the only reason they're saying no is because of their beliefs around, oh, you're a bit fragile. It's like, well, shit. Like, if I break my leg on a landing, it's probably someone with an able body would have broken their leg on that landing too. It's just, it's part of the risk. There's that risk for everyone. So, yeah, it should be fun. Yeah, brilliant. God, I pity your doctor. Jeez. Tough patient. Tough patient. No, you're the greatest, man. It's so good, and you're living a more fulfilling and rich life than most people that are fully able-bodied, I reckon. Yeah, and I hope that's what, with the book, and there's plans for hopefully a documentary as well, and that's the whole reason for the two of them, is to try to motivate people to kind of push beyond the barriers and limitations that they put on themselves and that society may have put on them, and realize that we're in control of those barriers, and there are ways around them. There are, we kind of just got to put ourselves out there, and sometimes it's just that first step that just gets us on a roll. Whether it's confidence, whether it's knowing that we can do something, knowing that it's easier than we thought it was going to be. So hopefully people take that away, and even from this chat right now. So it's been appreciate you having me on. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for sharing. My pleasure. Cheers, Tom.